From Marilyn Manson dismantling Bill O'Reilly live on Fox, to Courtney Love crashing Madonna's interview with makeup and mayhem, to Gene Simmons storming off mid-question like a rock god with zero patience. These are the rock stars who flipped out at disrespectful interviewers. And one of them, let's just say, he gave the host one-word answers for minutes straight, until they were forced to cut the segment live. Which of these meltdowns were justified? And which ones went off the rails? Let's find out. Number 1. Marilyn Manson turns the tables on Bill O'Reilly. You'd think pitting one of America's most controversial shock rockers against Fox News' loudest mouth would be a recipe for fireworks.
But you've done some pretty bizarre things on stage.
But instead of blowing up, Marilyn Manson delivered one of the calmest takedowns in interview history. On the O'Reilly Factor, Bill tried to label Manson as the corrupter of youth, blaming him for society's downfall. He threw out loaded questions, finger-wagging rhetoric, and smug moral superiority. But Manson? He didn't flinch. With a soft voice and razor-sharp logic, Manson picked apart every accusation. He flipped the spotlight back onto society, questioned O'Reilly's assumptions, and said, "I think it's not my job to parent America's kids. That's yours." O'Reilly was left stammering, unable to rattle his guest. The clip went viral for years, with fans calling it a masterclass in composure, intelligence, and rock star restraint. It proved you don't need to scream to win a battle. You just need to stay cooler than the guy melting down. But if Manson handled things with calm brilliance, the next rock legend took a very different route. By cutting the interview short and walking out with full glam metal fury. Number 2. Gene Simmons walks out over inappropriate questions. Gene Simmons is known for a lot: makeup, money, and not giving a damn. But when one interviewer crossed the line, he showed that even a rock god has limits. During a live TV spot, the Kiss frontman was hit with a personal question about his relationship history. Gene, dressed to the nines and visibly irritated, raised an eyebrow, leaned into the mic, and fired back, "That's none of your business, and frankly, you're out of line." Without waiting for a response, he stood up, ripped off the mic, and stormed out of the studio. The hosts scrambled. Cameras kept rolling. Gene didn't look back. Fans were split. Some praised his no-nonsense stance, others thought he overreacted. But one thing was clear: he wasn't there to play nice. It was a textbook moment of rock star swagger meets real-time media clash. And with Simmons being Simmons, the exit had just enough theatrical flair to make it iconic. But where Gene went big and loud, the next meltdown hit way different: pure silence, blank stares, and one of the most awkward interviews ever aired.
I've seen some pretty situations in my life, but nothing has ever sucked more ass than this.
Oh, okay, well, could maybe we talk to you again in the future about your band or something later on?
What the No.
Number 3. Billy Bob Thornton refuses to answer questions. This wasn't just a meltdown. This was ego putting on a clinic in awkward. Billy Bob Thornton was on a Canadian radio show to promote his band, the Boxmasters. But when the host casually mentioned his acting career during the intro, Thornton completely shut down.
Bad Santa. One of my favorite movies of all time. I thought you were awesome in the movie. I loved it.
Would you say that to Tom Petty?
Well, no, Tom Petty wasn't even in the movie. I wouldn't say that he was a good actor, no.
Really?
Yeah, really, Billy Bob. Like, don't tell me it's going to be another one of these things. Let's talk about this right now.
For the next 10 minutes, he answered in shrugs, long pauses, and single-word replies. The host tried to steer the conversation. The band looked mortified. Billy just sat there, stone-faced. At one point, he was asked about musical influences. His reply? Monsters. That's it. Just monsters.
Mashed potatoes with no gravy, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like something like that. I know it offended a lot of people there, so I thought maybe this morning we'd do it a little different and we'd like talk to you about what you liked about Canada. Like, what do you like about Canada?
Boned a lot of fat chicks.
I'm not, I guess.
The clip went viral for all the wrong reasons. Fans weren't even angry, they were confused. What was he doing? What was the point? It was like watching someone sabotage their own press tour just to prove a point. Whether it was an act of protest, pride, or pure ego, Billy Bob's refusal to engage turned the spotlight squarely on him, and not in a good way. But if awkward silence made this moment iconic, the next rocker went the opposite route, firing off savage insults with no filter, no mercy, and zero shame.
The guy offered me outright when I wasn't in the country in front of MTV, right?
Yeah.
He didn't say his fucking words today, right? When I'm 4 tables across the road from him, right?
He left early. Do you think you drove him out?
No.
No?
I reckon he drove himself out, mate.
Number 4. Liam Gallagher roasts interviewers with savage comebacks. Liam Gallagher doesn't do polite press. He does verbal uppercuts in broad daylight.
No, I wash my hair, mate. You know what I mean? Twice, like once every 2 days. So I change my clothes, change my socks. I wear pumps, I don't wear rockabilly boots.
In one interview gone viral, the Oasis frontman walked in, stared down the host, and within minutes was roasting their haircut, outfit, and entire existence. When asked a lazy question about songwriting, Liam leaned forward and snapped, "You look like you sell dodgy mobile phones, mate." The host nervously laughed. Liam didn't. He followed it up with a deadpan. "You gonna ask me something worth answering, or are we done here?" That clip made the rounds instantly. Fans weren't surprised. This is just who Liam is. Blunt, brutal, and allergic to bullshit. But it was the way he delivered it, with that Mancunian sneer and zero hesitation, that made it unforgettable. It wasn't a meltdown, it was a verbal mugging. One that left the interviewer scrambling and viewers howling. And while Liam roasted from his chair, the next moment brought pure chaos. When a certain grunge queen crashed a live TV set with lipstick, attitude, and pure rock energy. Number 5. Courtney Love crashes Madonna's interview live. Only Courtney Love could crash a live Madonna interview and somehow become the headline. It happened at the 1995 VMAs. Madonna was mid-interview with MTV, calm and poised in her designer gown, when suddenly, a compact case flies onto the set. Then comes Courtney, clearly buzzed, grinning ear to ear, climbing onto the platform with makeup in hand. She threw shade, threw compliments, then just threw herself into the conversation. Madonna tried to keep her cool, but Courtney kept interrupting, calling out fake smiles and throwing off the vibe completely. It wasn't scripted. It wasn't cute. It was Courtney Love in full chaos mode, turning a polished press moment into a punk rock prank. Security didn't stop her. MTV didn't cut the feed. They let it play out. And it became one of the most unpredictable moments in music TV history.
Wait, who's got better shoes?
You guys go back.
Those suck and they're un-PC,
That guy,
okay?
the PETA guy.
But if Courtney brought the chaos, the next guy brought that old school punk venom, and he dropped the F-bomb on live air without blinking.
Bunch of wankers, really. You consider beauty, isn't it?
Number 6. John Lydon, Johnny Rotten, destroys the interviewer. John Lydon doesn't do friendly chat. He does verbal warfare. In one infamous moment, the Sex Pistols legend was being interviewed by a visibly smug journalist who thought he could outsmart Johnny. Big mistake. The interviewer asked loaded, condescending questions. Lydon paused, stared, then growled, "Are you trying to be clever? Because you're coming off like a..." When the host chuckled nervously and tried to pivot, Lydon leaned in closer and said, "F off. Interview's over." And just like that, boom, live, unfiltered punk rebellion right through the camera lens. It wasn't just about attitude, it was about drawing a line. John Lydon doesn't perform for posers, and he's not afraid to say so, especially when the mic is hot. That clip remains iconic for how brutally honest it was. No fluff, no fear, just rotten, raw, and ruthless. And while Lydon scorched the host to ash, the next rock legend flipped a dumb question into a joke so slick, it made the reporter look like the punchline.
The chops that these cats do, you know, what these guys do with their hands, with their fingers and like that. The best.
Number 7. David Lee Roth shuts down. A reporter with a one-liner. David Lee Roth has never needed much to steal a moment. Sometimes all it takes is one perfectly timed punchline. During a press stop in the late 80s, a reporter decided to get snarky. They asked Roth if his wild image was just compensation for lacking real musical depth. Roth didn't miss a beat. He smiled, tilted his head, and fired back. "Well, I've got sex, drugs, and rock and roll covered. Depth's your job." The room erupted. The host tried to laugh it off, but the damage was done. Roth flashed his signature grin, sipped his drink, and just stared like he knew he'd ended the conversation with one line. That clip lives rent-free in the heads of Van Halen fans and anyone who's ever dreamed of shutting down a hater with style. It wasn't angry. It wasn't loud. It was pure rock star charisma weaponized into comedy. And while Roth turned the tables with humor, the next moment tackled blame, tragedy, and moral panic when one artist was falsely painted as the voice of violence after national tragedy. Number 8. Marilyn Manson calmly dismantles reporter Post-Columbine.
Byproducts of that whole tragedy were violence and entertainment and gun control.
After the Columbine tragedy, Marilyn Manson became the media's favorite scapegoat. Pundits and reporters jumped at the chance to blame his dark image and lyrics for influencing violence. But when Manson finally sat down to speak, he didn't rage, he rewrote the narrative. In one of his most iconic interviews, Manson was asked what he would have said to the Columbine shooters. He paused, looked the interviewer in the eye, and said, "I wouldn't say anything. I'd listen." That one sentence hit like thunder. The room went silent. Viewers watching at home felt the shift. It wasn't just a clever quote. It was a masterclass in empathy from the guy painted as a monster. Rather than feeding the drama, Manson stripped it away. No stunts, no sarcasm, just presence. And in doing so, he exposed how shallow and reactive the media narrative had become. But if Manson stunned with grace, the next moment crackled with tension when one legendary frontman warned an interviewer to back off. Or else. Number 9. Axl Rose blows up over Rehashed drama. Some interviews are a ticking time bomb, and when it comes to Axl Rose, you don't poke the bear. During a sit-down meant to promote a tour, the host brought up decades-old beef from the Guns N' Roses days. Axl's posture changed instantly. His jaw clenched, and with ice in his voice, he said, "You bring that up again, and this ends now." The interviewer laughed nervously. Bad move. Axl leaned forward and repeated, "I'm serious, don't." You could cut the tension with a rusty guitar string. The vibe shifted from promotional fluff to a room that felt like a powder keg. One more misstep, and Axl was walking, or swinging, or both. The segment ended shortly after, and fans still debate whether it was real or performative. Either way, it was Axl doing what Axl does, owning the moment and refusing to let anyone else write the story. But where Axl ran hot, the next rocker stayed cool and calculated, turning the tables on the media with a cold, surgical takedown of sensationalism.
People think in the same way, so I could just bitch about it and not do anything, or just do it myself. So I tried to do it myself, and it became kind of fun.
Number 10. Trent Reznor calls out media for sensationalism. Trent Reznor isn't just a musical architect. He's a master of dissecting BS with a straight face and razor-sharp logic. While promoting a 9 Inch Nails record, Reznor sat down with a mainstream outlet that seemed more interested in past scandals than present music. Halfway through, the interviewer asked yet another loaded question about past addictions. Trent didn't flinch. He paused, locked eyes with the host, and said, "You're not interested in what I'm doing. You're just here for clickbait. So let's call this what it is." Boom! The air got thick. The host stumbled through a follow-up, but Trent stayed composed, deadly calm, as he outlined how media thrives off tearing down instead of building up. It wasn't angry, it was surgical. That moment went viral among fans who were sick of seeing rock artists treated like train wrecks. It showed that Reznor could gut you without ever raising his voice. And while Trent used words like scalpels, the next rocker came in loud, aggressive, and unapologetically unhinged, delivering a full-blown on-air explosion that only he could pull off. Number 11. Ted Nugent's explosive debate on gun control. Ted Nugent isn't known for subtlety. He's known for going nuclear. In one high-profile interview, a reporter challenged his stance on gun rights, asking tough questions and quoting his past inflammatory comments. Within seconds, Nugent's switch flipped. He launched into a full-volume rant. "I have the right to defend myself, my family, and my country, and I don't need permission from you or your propaganda." The host tried to interrupt, but Nugent talked over him, firing off insults, stats, and sarcasm in machine gun bursts. Then, mid-rant, he stood up, ripped off his mic, and stormed off. It was pure Nugent, unfiltered, aggressive, and polarizing as hell. Love him or hate him, you felt that energy. It wasn't about winning an argument, it was about dominance. The clip got shared everywhere and became a symbol of the unhinged meets unapologetic corner of rock media clashes. But while Nugent's exit was thunderous, the next guy gave us the quietest freak out on the list, so spaced out you weren't sure if he even knew he was on camera. Number 12. Ozzy Osbourne forgets. He's in an interview. Ozzy's been through a lot, but this one takes the cake for rock star confusion at its finest. During a promotional appearance for his reality show, Ozzy sat down for a basic daytime TV interview and completely spaced. The host asked a softball question, something about family, and Ozzy just blinked. Then came the mumbles, slurred replies, long pauses. What did you say? Yeah, that's good. The host repeated themselves twice. Ozzy kept staring off to the side like he was waiting for a sandwich to arrive. It wasn't a meltdown, it was a slow-motion derailment. Eventually, Sharon had to step in and answer for him. Ozzy just nodded along, clearly lost in another dimension. The moment was awkward, hilarious, and oddly endearing. It showed that even legends can get fried by years of touring, substances, and just being Ozzy. But if Ozzy's chaos was unintentional, the next rocker knew exactly what he was doing, using wit and sarcasm to flip an insult right back onto the interviewer's lap. Number 13. Iggy Pop laughs off a host's awkward insults.
One album.
Hiya, Dogface.
Iggy, how are you, mate? Listen, welcome,
Good day.
welcome to the show.
When a host tried to poke fun at Iggy Pop's appearance, they didn't realize they were handing the mic to a legend who thrives on being unbothered. In a TV sit-down from the early 2000s, the interviewer asked Iggy if he felt he was too old to be shirtless on stage. The question wasn't funny, it was disrespectful. But Iggy didn't bite. Instead, he burst out laughing. Then he leaned forward and said, "I've been shirtless longer than you've been alive, mate. Why start wearing clothes now?" The audience erupted. The host tried to recover, but Iggy kept the pressure on, with jokes, sarcasm, and that signature punk smirk. By the end of it, the interviewer looked more embarrassed than the guy with no shirt. It was a perfect lesson in how to turn shade into spotlight. No yelling, no storming off. Just punk confidence and timing so good, it felt like a stand-up set. But while Iggy mocked with charm, the next moment came with brutal honesty, when one British legend torched an interviewer for being lazy and unprepared.
Why do you keep calling me a little idiot?
Uh-oh.
That's what you are.
Uh-oh. Number 14. Noel Gallagher roasts interviewers' questions. If you're going to interview Noel Gallagher, you better come correct. In one painfully awkward radio interview, a host asked Noel if Oasis ever considered doing more love songs. That's all it took. Noel blinked, smirked, and said, "That's your big question? You've had all morning to prep, and that's what you lead with?" He didn't stop there. He called the interviewer lazy, accused him of Googling 5 minutes before air, and then spent the next few minutes turning the entire segment into a roast. Have you even listened to the new album? No. Well then what the fucks are we doing here, mate? Noel didn't raise his voice. He didn't get aggressive. He just flipped the table with pure deadpan energy and sharp wit, leaving the host fumbling for an escape hatch. It was a car crash you couldn't stop watching. And it proved that Noel, like his brother Liam, doesn't tolerate fools. He grinds them into YouTube gold. But if Noel came with the clever cuts, our final entry brought pure tension, silence, stares, and one of the most uncomfortable interviews to ever hit TV.
Time I gotta go stretch my willy out.
No. Number 15. Fred Durst, Stonewalls, awkward interviewer. Sometimes the loudest outburst is silence. In one now infamous clip, Fred Durst of Limp Bizkit sat across from a visibly awkward TV host trying way too hard to be edgy. The questions came fast and dumb. Are you still relevant? Do you miss being cool? But Fred? He didn't flinch. Instead, he answered every question with one word. Yep. Nope. Maybe. And then came the stare. No expression, no smile, just full-on red-cap death stare. The host, visibly panicking, tried to joke his way out of it. Fred didn't move, didn't blink, didn't give an inch. Eventually, they cut to commercial and never aired the full segment again. That moment lives on as a masterclass in passive-aggressive domination. Fred didn't throw a tantrum. He made the host crumble with presence alone. It was quiet. It was brutal. And it proved that sometimes the coolest flip-out is saying absolutely nothing at all. These were the most savage, awkward, and unforgettable rock star interviews in history. Moments where the mic turned into a weapon and the questions crossed the line. Comment below, which meltdown had you cheering, cringing, or rewinding? And if you remember watching one of these live, we want to hear what went through your head. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and send this to a rock fan who lives for raw, unfiltered moments and rebellious energy.